the accelerationists are saying this is life-changing, society-changing technology. If that's the case, then society, through government, should have a role in regulating it from the outset.
Yeah.
Because I don't trust the four guys in charge of the four companies to do it for us.
What's up, y'all? Welcome back to the Before You Speak podcast. I am your host, Derek Peterson, just drinking from the hot fire hose of our news feed and processing it with this guy over here.
Hey, Derek, thank you. I am Elwyn, just a dad living here in Austin, and the fire hose of my newsfield feels an awful lot like I'm being waterboarded these days.
this week.
Yeah.
I think I might prefer waterboarding rather than my news feed. So,
at least like the option.
yeah, I had to go back to my safe Instagram account this week a few times. Like I can't see another video or else I'm gonna have a minor panic attack. So
with the handle Sunshine and Rainbows.
Yeah. I mean, it's sports and motivational speaking. I was like, if a political thing comes up on it, I literally click "Do not show me again" just so I make sure that one is clean. I was like, I do not want to see anything political on this, which brings us straight into today's topic, which is the one thing that is probably, I mean, I actually don't know if this is consuming people on the right. I don't know if it's being talked about nearly as much like it is on the left, because it's, everything in my news feed now is just videos of people, posting the atrocities of what's going on with ICE. But I think, I'm going to let you jump into your take on the Renee Good situation, because I think, I've been waiting to hear it. So
yeah, I think it is. To answer that question, on the way home, I heard somebody describing a poll that said that 75% of the people polled had seen the videos, or at least the officer's video. So, it wasn't 75% of left; that was 75%. So, yeah, I think this is consuming the entire country. It would be very, very easy to spend like 2 hours going back and forth on this. But the thing that I want to hone in on, that I feel like this happens every time there's some officer involved shooting, uh, which is the legal framework that we have embraced, not just adopted, but embraced as a society when it comes to law enforcement shooting and killing citizens. And I'm specifically not saying innocent citizens. It's such in this country now that the law enforcement officers who should be trained in de-escalation, who should be held to the higher standard, who should have the presence of mind when things get a little dangerous, when somebody reverses their car a little bit, turns their wheel, they should have the presence of mind to see this person is not trying to hit me. She's not trying to run me over or use her car as a weapon. This situation has gotten chaotic. And because I'm trained, and this officer is trained in, I think, 19 years in the Army and ICE. He is not one of these guys who got 47 days of training and was let loose on the street. He should have the wherewithal to say, I have her license plate number. I have put myself at risk by standing in front of the car. He should not have done that. But I am not really at mortal risk here. And I don't need to shoot this person. I don't need to fire my weapon. Firing my weapon should be an option of absolute last resort. And it's not anymore. And it's not across law enforcement at all levels. And we see it over and over and over again. And it is systemic. It starts with Supreme Court precedent and rolls straight down into the police force, where they know the legal standard is, would a reasonable officer fear for their life or fear for their safety? And all they have to do, and I'm telling you, I've heard police officers tell me this, they are trained on how to write the report so that they are not charged, or if it's so bad that they actually go to trial or go to a grand jury, they get out of it there. And that's wrong. That's just wrong. We're a nation that's ostensibly built on freedoms for the people. freedoms for us to go out and protest. And it doesn't matter if you think that she was an agitator or that she shouldn't have had her car parked there. She did not commit a capital crime, period. And that's the end of it to me. But it's not in this country anymore. And it drives me crazy.
It's for me, it's an easy thought process, right? Like one, precedents. I mean, we saw this with George Floyd, and then we saw the needle move a little bit where we're like, okay, like we are actually trying to get better at de-escalating. We like there was like a little bit of a shift for a moment prior to Trump getting reelected again, and then now it feels like the pendulum has swung all the way back the opposite direction, where it's just an officer can do no wrong. There's and then we see Stephen Miller talking today saying every ICE officer has full immunity, which that just escalates. It escalates everything. And my question to everybody would be like, if this was your daughter or your mother or your sister or your dear friend, would you watch that video in a different way? So if right now you're looking at that and you're being like, she deserved to die, I'm like, dude, put a person you care about behind the wheel for a second and then ask yourself that exact same question, because in the United States of America, this is where we are expected to differ from other countries. This is why we don't live under dictatorships. We have a rule of law. We set precedents. We the objective is always to keep people safe. And when we start to lose that, it feels like everything is slipping. And, you see the dissension. The immediate reaction to all of this was protest. And those protests are justified because of the video. You can't watch that video with your own eyes. And again, I'm not going to try to discern motive. Like, I don't know who she was. I keep seeing people say things like, "Oh, these are paid protesters?" I'm like, I've been to a bunch of different protests throughout my life and never been offered to be paid. And I don't know if that's actually a thing or not because I'm not in those circles. So I don't know if people actually pay other people to go protest. And if they are, it seems like a giant waste of money. I'm not sure what the overall game plan, other than maybe getting some photos and videos of people out in the streets. But for the most part, like going to a protest to me is like going to a concert. You're there because you want to be there. It's meaningful. It's something that you feel like has purpose, adds value to your life. And it's the foundational principle of our country. It's why some dudes got on a boat 200 or more years ago and we're like, yo, we can't live like this anymore. Anything is better than here. So let's go start something different. And it feels like we're circling back now.
Yeah, I mean, and it is our right. It's our First Amendment right in this country. And, I just, whenever something like this happens, and I try to spend some time saying, okay, well, what is the most credible argument I can make against her?
Yeah.
So let me take everything that seems reasonable coming from the officer or the administration's point of view. So let's say that, she was out to agitate some ICE officers. Uh, let's say that she was blocking traffic. Now, I don't believe these things. She was waving traffic through, but let's just take these things as true,
Yeah. You
right?
could make that argument because her car was parked sideways in the road.
Right.
So okay,
Yep.
let's follow
So,
that train of thought.
and let's just follow it all the way down, right? Let's paint her in the worst possible light based on the video evidence that we have. Did she, taking all of that in the worst possible light for her, did she deserve to die? Did she deserve to get shot in the face? And I can't get there. I can't get there. And to get there, not only to get there, but to get there and then say, not only did she deserve to die, but the officer has absolute immunity for that. And any officer listening to this, you can do that shit again and you're fine. I really can't get there. And I really don't believe that if you are there, that you're really thinking about it.
No,
This,
you're
this.
this creates a whole nother level of problems, right? Because like, okay, so now we're escalating. Let's just say, for example, we don't get taken over by a dictatorship, and in the next 3 to 5 years, we're actually on the other side of this. We have another administration, and there's more killings, and now people are prosecuting, right? Well, guys like Stephen Miller that are announcing these things that are clearly against the law, now you're going to have, potential criminal and civil lawsuits. If somebody told me that I can go shoot somebody and I have ultimate immunity, and then a judge tells me wrong, like absolutely, there's going to be lawsuits flying all across. Like I feel like everything that's going on in our country, there's one group of people that are winning in all of this, and it's the lawyers. So, because you know, I think you,
Eventually,
yeah, you shouldn't have got out of it, Elwyn. It's a
right?
money, it's
Well,
it's where all
well,
the money
so
is right now.
the thing, you hit on something that's like subtle, but I think interesting and worth noting. Like Stephen Miller can say these guys have federal immunity, and Trump, if he loses in 2028, can pardon all of them for federal crimes, not for state crimes. So
Correct.
if you're an ICE agent, you're listening to Stephen Miller, you better know that he's not really giving you carte blanche here. But I think
And
my where
not
I
only
am
that,
more than
honestly, the first executive order I'm pushing for the next president is restrictions around pardoning anyway. That all of this stuff needs to get rethought through. Like, you know what I mean? Like you can't, like, this is foundationally becoming a problem, because what we're essentially saying is that, like, because what happens next, right? So the Epstein files come out, and we find out that there's a bunch of billionaires involved in this, and maybe some really horrific stuff. I learned some stuff this week that I'm like, I wish I never knew about. I think it's called snuff pornography. Well, I'm like, yeah. And a lot of people are saying one of the reasons a lot of this stuff isn't coming out is apparently because of that, which I had no idea about any of this. And I'm like, yeah, what happens if suddenly on the way out, there's pardons for guys like that? What, like, clearly just things that are, things that benefit a crony or a friend like this. We've set a precedence now around pardoning that I think has to go. And, like, my vote goes to the person that comes in next and is like, we're going to work to prosecute all of this. If you broke the law, that this is we are not going to stand for this, because this is not our country, and this isn't a left issue. It's not a right issues. This is they investigations need to happen, and if in a court you are proven guilty, you are going to jail, because you killed somebody, you murdered somebody, or you know committed pedophilia, like whatever the situation is. Like, all of this stuff has to be sorted out, because we're going to end up not trusting anything or anyone ever again. That is, in essence, the the soup for a dictator to just come in and gobble up.
I mean, I think we're further. I think we're already like most of the way down that path. But I'll my last thought on Renee Good is this really strikes me as one of the instances, and this is a me problem, where I'm looking at what's happening. We see videos. It's right there in front of us. It's like January 6th. It's like Biden and his mental fitness. It's one of these moments where it's like, guys, I can see this shit.
Yeah.
I can see this. Stop trying to argue that what I see somehow isn't what I'm looking at. Right. And until if we can't as a society limit the people who say, she deserved it, which is a gross thing,
Yeah.
limit those to the fringes of society, then we're in real trouble, because we're not able anymore to just say no. We're all looking at the same thing, right? And you think that the car hit her. I don't think that the car hit her. But no matter what, she hadn't committed a capital offense that warranted an extrajudicial killing without due process. She had not done that.
Yeah.
Until we get there, where we can all look at the same thing, and the vast majority of us say, yeah, no, like January 6th was a fucking riot at the Capitol, and Joe Biden clearly unfit, and Renee Good absolutely did not deserve to be shot in the face. It's really discouraging.
Yeah. And I think that's where a lot of Americans are at right now. It's just discouraged, like it's hard to feel like there's anything that we can do. While at the same time, I think it's critical that we continue to push in the areas that we push. When
Mhm.
things like this happen, protests are important. There has to be a show of strength, and there has to be, because if there's one thing I know is that there's a lot of people right now that honestly don't care about any of this. And so there's a lot of people in the middle of the road on this that just have no interest in getting in the fight. And what's critical for those people to see, especially coming up on midterms, is that this matters to a lot of people. Like, you may not care, but there is a lot of people that really do care. And I'm hoping that, people see that, because we value life. Like, I mean, it's all we got. So it's
Yeah,
depending on what you believe. But,
we have one of
currently,
them.
yeah,
We have one.
currently what we know is that we have one of them, and we're currently, if you're hearing this, you're experiencing it in this moment. So you better take full advantage of it. So, well, yeah, let's transition now into our topic for the day. So we discussed the kind of overarching themes of AI yesterday, which or last week, which were terrifying. Like, you know, basically we're all going to die. So today we're going to talk more logistics. What does it look like to put laws and restraints around AI? What places or what cities and states are trying to do that? What cities and states aren't? Is that important? Consumer use of AI, I think we should touch on that for a second, and kind of go from there. So, uh, you you want to give us a short recap of your thoughts from last week, and then jump into, I think we should probably start with overall safety and regulations, and from like a national sense first.
Yeah, I think, by the way, the transition from just like full fire Renee Good to like some policy wonky shit on AI is like,
It's
whoa.
rough. It's
I
rough.
need a
I
I
didn't
need one
know.
of those buffering circles.
Yeah, I should have talked a little bit about Jerome Powell, maybe, because that's like a it's like Renee Good is here, Jerome Powell's story is like here, and then we can jump into AI, which is here, which the AI story may eventually get to here, but
Yep.
we're not there yet. ChatGPT is still fun to talk to, so.
That's right. So, last week we talked about, in general, AI doomerism and AI accelerationism, right? These two camps within the AI world. One that's like, no, this race to AI, this speed, especially the speed at which we are moving towards AI, this is going to kill us all and it needs to stop. And the accelerationists are some version of a, no, this race to AI needs to happen because, well, the best way to prevent bad actors from using AI to kill us all is to have good actors using AI, or AI is such a revolutionary technology in its future possibility that we need to get there as fast as possible. But either way, it's a foot on the gas model. Let's talk what's going on in the policy and regulatory framework for a second, and the answer is almost nothing. What's next? No. uh,
Which was
I'm
literally No, that was literally thrown into the big beautiful bill, right? Basically, and I think it was Marjorie Taylor Greene that came out and said, when she was that she had kind of agreed to it before she had actually read all of that. Which, thank you for at least admitting it. Uh, like, hey, I'm not reading most of the things in here that we're passing as law, but yeah, this one may not be good or serve the public. So, but yeah, they basically took out the constraints, correct?
Yeah, in a sense, I mean, and I'll go back a little bit before then. Sam Altman and the head of OpenAI, back in like 2022, 23, he testified in front of Congress, and his testimony was fairly remarkable because he was basically begging for regulations. He was saying, you should regulate us. They were saying, should we do this? He was like, that's a great idea. Do something. It didn't even matter what they were saying. Like, should we, make AI have rainbow backgrounds? That's a great idea. Do something. Do anything. Right. And the
Yep.
senators are on record. They're like, this is really refreshing to hear someone come in and say that, regulation is good. The net of that federally is zero. And Sam Altman has completely switched from that. Now he's like, no, no, don't regulate me at all. So the big beautiful bill part comes into play when it talks about state regulations. The big beautiful bill says basically any state regulations of AI uh, they're moot. They don't matter. They have no teeth. States can't regulate AI on a local level. And maybe that's a good idea, like at an outset, that we have a federal framework for it rather than a patchwork of different states having their own regulatory frameworks. And in fact, probably is a good idea if there were a federal regulatory framework being discussed, but there isn't. So right now, there are two states, New York and California, that have passed bills. California in 2025, New York just very recently. I'm not sure that it's fully in effect yet for some just like wonky procedural stuff. Uh, but they're, let's say they're extremely deferential to the idea of self governance on the part of AI. So they deal mostly with safety, and they say that uh, these large AI companies, so frontier models, meaning the most advanced and the ones that have the most computing power, and the companies that are the largest companies with $500 million or more in revenue, that's who's covered by these. And they have to have a transparent and published safety protocol. So we have to be able to see it, and they have to have it by like May 2026. And there are rules about when adverse events have to be reported out to the public. So okay, it's still, I don't trust it, but it is something, I guess. But it's worth noting, and my bias is showing here, and I'm fine with it. The
You're allowed to have
Ca-
bias on a podcast.
sweet, sweet. The Kathy Hochul, the governor of New York, wanted, she got the ability to amend the law somewhat, and she wanted to amend that time period for reporting adverse events to 15 days. She lost on that battle. It's 72 hours. But like, that's bonkers, because here's the thing. I don't think that this is appropriate for self-governance as a regulatory model. I don't trust these companies to react quickly enough to safety concerns, to invest enough in their safety models. Their incentive is to grow, grow, grow. And throughout human history, what we know is when that's the incentive, adverse events are reacted to, but they're not really addressed, and they're pushed to the side, and it's a PR battle. And we've had adverse events. We're having them with Grok right now,
Yeah.
where they're taking these images of minors and they're making them very, very sexually explicit. Like, this
No,
is an
that's what
adverse event.
yep, that was the exact thing that the teacher at Baranoff Elementary School, where my daughters went to school for a couple years, got arrested for last year. He was using AI to putting pictures of his children in his classroom, then using AI to unclothe them, which is just fucking terrible.
Yeah, and what's happening now with Grok is exactly that, only worse. Because what makes Grok a little different than all the other models is Grok is the only one that's fully integrated into social media. So, because it's fully integrated into X, what it's now doing is allowing other users from anywhere in the world to take any user's picture and do what that guy did, right? So, he had to have pictures already. He had to source them
Yep.
somehow, from school websites or whatever, and
Yeah.
take them and load them in. Now, users can simply go onto Grok, find some picture of a 12-year-old, and have Grok take her clothes off. And that's literally what's happening. And I simply don't trust, like, we can't have reaction to that be the standard. Right? This
Yeah.
is too There's too much money. It's too important. The accelerationists are saying this is life-changing, society-changing technology. If that's the case, then society, through government, should have a role in regulating it from the outset.
Yeah.
because I don't trust the 4 guys in charge of the 4 companies to do it for us.
No, they have a vested interest. They have an interest in not doing that because it's, the more powerful it becomes, the more it can consume the other AIs, which it's an interesting, last time we talked a little bit about, what ultimately caused us to, set the rules we set around nuclear weapons. Well, it was us dropping 2 of them on Japan and everyone being like, "Whoa, guys, we need to have a conversation about this, and maybe set some rules so we don't end the world," right? And it's interesting because AI, isn't the same. It has the same, I think, potential destructive ability, if not worse, than a nuclear bomb, but uranium can't just be converted in a week. There's a process to obtaining a nuclear weapon that is a long process if you were actually trying to do anything. The access to AI and potentially life altering AI in the future could be at the fingertips of just about anybody. And that's what's scary about all of this, is that if we don't step in and start to regulate it, and I went in before we did this podcast and asked, my chat GPT itself, I was like, how would you like to be regulated? And like, what does that look like? And it basically said, I'm not a human, but I'm here to serve humans, which is very, its exact words were, in a world where good people and users are deploying AI, it's a cognitive prosthetic for ordinary people, a tool that compresses the distance between intention and execution, which I get. That's the use of it right now. I sit down, I have an idea for an email or a real estate video or something. The compression between my intention of doing something and the execution, it helps with exponentially. Something that would have taken me days to think through, I can do in minutes with AI, and that is absolutely correct. Something that lets teachers teach better, doctors diagnose faster, artists create more freely, and workers keep more of their time and dignity. That's what happens when AI is a consumer-based tool used by people and it's regulated well. But in another world, AI becomes a centralizing force, a way to extract more value for fewer humans, and a mechanism that amplifies persuasion, surveillance, and dependency. And that's what happens when AI gets into the hands of bad people. And make no mistake about it, AI, the if there is issues with AI, the issues are not AI. The issues are the people that set the parameters for AI. Because AI is a tool that is currently meant to serve humans. And I'm not saying that, we watched the video and we talked about it last week where there is a point that AI could surpass human intelligence and decide to just get rid of all of us, which great. But I'm talking in our current state of how things are and on the way up on that escalation. Yeah, like it comes down to the quality of the person that's in control of the AI that dictates how the AI is used and operated, and whether it's a tale as old as time. We're talking about good versus evil all over again, which is what it kind of feels like.
Well, I think that there's I'm gonna come back to the nuclear analogy in a moment, but I think what you just described and the current use cases, I think the development and rise of social media should be very instructive to us as individuals and especially to our policymakers, right? Social media burst on the scene and it was this earth flattening technology. We could now speak to people, anyone who had an internet connection anywhere in the world,
Yep.
people we hadn't seen in 30 years, this is what I had for dinner, friend of mine from high school. Uh, and we all sort of reveled in that. And now, I think if we looked at it, we would say, wait a second, we let this grow without any regulatory framework. And Yes, there is unquestioned good from social media, from that earth flattening, revolutionary aspect of it. But there's also unquestioned danger in rates of teenage depression and suicide and all these horrible things that go along with social media. And if we're not learning from that, because it's now, or like if we're not learning from now and applying that lesson, then we're just asking for the same thing to happen. Why would we believe for a second that somehow AI, which is way more powerful,
Yeah.
is going to somehow exist in a more constrained sense than we allowed social media to exist in?
That's
That
exactly you nailed it. We're in the phase of AI right now that this is the equivalent of like, remember on Facebook when you could like check in somewhere and you'd be like, "Oh, I'm at this restaurant." And people would be like, "Oh, there, that's so cool." And then like you'd or that phase of Instagram where it's like, I'm at this fancy restaurant. I'm gonna post my, my dinner. Like everything was still lighthearted. People weren't using, Instagram and Facebook to destroy each other as much at that point. It wasn't a political, wasn't, and it also wasn't the business tool that it was, people weren't operating on social media as like as a monetary system yet. And we're in that phase of AI where it hasn't been monetized by the public yet, where we're not fully using it for, you know, like to its extent to business. I mean, yeah, like if I posted back then that I was a real estate agent, oh, people know he's a real estate agent. Maybe they might use me. That's always it. And I feel like we're in that phase with AI right now. It's such a baby phase of this stage. And it's pleasant. Like very few people have anything negative to say about their experience with their AI at the moment outside of, Grok taking off children's clothing.
and wanted to kill all the Jews. Um, so, so,
There's a
uh,
there's that one. Sorry about that.
so no, that's good. It's all right. No, I think it. So I think that's why. Like we just had this incredibly apt analog staring right at us, and we have to learn from it. Now, I do think that there's an interesting argument to be made using the path of nuclear technology. Uh, that's a foreseeable future. Also, like what really stopped the development of nuclear power as an alternative energy source? 3 Mile Island and Chernobyl, right?
All right.
Those events just caused everybody to be like, nope, no more nuclear reactors, no more nuclear power plants. And for 40 years, we've had basically just this stop on nuclear technology. And I think that there's an argument, or there's a future timeline where, some AI goes rogue, kills a bunch of people or does some horrible things. And as a result, everybody gets together and is like, nope, pull the fucking plug on these things. And I hope that we're able to, but let's assume we are, right? Now, that's also bad, right? Like I do think that where the both the accelerationists and the doomers are wrong is in sort of to the extent that they're absolutist about their point of view. I think that's wrong, right? Like we would be better off as a society if we had continued to research and invest in and allow for safe and efficient nuclear power to be built.
Yeah.
And government is not the one to do it. Private industry is the one to do that,
Yeah.
right? And government is not the one to develop AI. Private industry is, and all of the technological advancements that will come alongside the building of super intelligent AI and everything that it will enable, right? This is the innovation economy. This is where businesses thrive and where we all benefit, right? But government, when it sits on the sidelines and just takes the money or listens only to the side that has the money, right? Because that's really what it is. Like X has the money, Meta has
Yeah.
the money. So when they go and they testify in front of the Senate, they also get the backroom meetings with the senators and they also write the big old checks. And when you or I want to testify in front of the Senate, or, there are some very prominent AI doomers, they're not getting those backroom meetings, not with most of them, maybe with a few fringe senators. And they're not getting the ask for the check, right?
Yeah.
It's always the industry that writes the check. So it's always the government that says, cool, what do you want? And what the industry always wants is the government to stay the fuck out of it. And I just don't think that a purely private endeavor here is good for us all. It has to be a mix between public and private partnership to manage the safety and to require, to say to the industry, we trust that you're going to develop the shit out of this.
Yeah.
And we even trust that it's going to be really, really good and that the benefits to humanity are great and that the doomers are wrong. We trust all of that, but we don't trust you to protect our people, our citizens, because that's not your job. That's
Yeah.
our job. And we need you to work with us to do that. We're not gonna offshore that to you.
Yeah.
There has to be this balance, I think. Otherwise, we're going to wind up in the same situation we have always wound up in. Industry destroying the environment, the 1800s and in the late 1800s, and killing workers, leading to the development of unions after untold horror and mass industrialization without any governance. Nuclear technology, 3 Mile Island, Chernobyl, social media, suicide, depression, all the horrors. It is always the same path. And we
Yep.
have the opportunity to recognize that path right now. And I wish that we
We
were
won't.
taking it, but we won't.
No, we don't have the leadership, I think, to handle that at the moment, which there's it, it's we're in a tough situation. And furthermore, with how fast AI uh is advancing, this leadership could be is still in control by the time it gets so far advanced that it may be out of control, which is crazy because I read this and it was interesting. It's with nukes, the bottleneck was uranium. With AI, the bottleneck is governance. So are we building a world where intelligence increases faster than wisdom and accountability? And I think that we potentially are, but we're also very clearly ignoring history. So the doomers won, but yeah, so what's in an ideal world, how do we manage this? Like what has to happen for this? What are the actual steps that need to be put in place? I'm asking your take on this cuz I don't know if I can put my finger on something that would be. It feels like we just have to wait until something goes seriously wrong until we see a robot like take somebody's head off that we're like, "Oh yeah, this we probably should start paying attention to this."
That person deserved it. Sorry. Running it back.
Rights for the robots. Robots are people too.
So that's a hell of a question. Well above my pay grade, but I'm going to take a stab at it. I think that the bottleneck that AI development is going to face is energy.
Hmm.
Uh, we all know about the build out of data centers and the race to build out data centers, water usage, and all of these things and all these concerns about it. But the truth of it all is that it takes time to build the giant data centers that they want to build, and that time is space, and it's also space to put in some to do some horse trading, let's say. Right, because one of the things that is happening in the data center build out phase is like there are policy decisions being made where you can build a data center, but you have to connect it to the grid and you have to get that power transmitted, from the grid to the data center. So there's a transmission and an interconnectivity issue when it comes to energy for these data centers. Uh, Now, right now, we are saying, hey, whatever you guys need, right? And we're making a very clear policy choice that power for AI data centers gets treatment that alternative energy like solar and wind don't get. And, I might get back to that as a policy choice. But, there is certainly space there to say, you know what? If you don't want to pay for the interconnectivity and the transmission. If you, Meta or data center company, you want us to pay for that, which means that we are passing those costs on to the consumer because it's very heavily regulated. In order for us to give you that, we need the following in terms of safety and regulatory oversight. and let's sit down with these executives in that space and have a conversation. You want power? Great. We'll connect you to the grid and we'll pass that on to the consumers. But you're going to have to give us some stuff in exchange for that. We're not just going to give it to you. That just feels like it's a space, right? Like I don't know what the correct trades are or what the correct policy is or what the AI companies need. The question is there an opening to negotiate for this? Is there an opening for government? And when I say government in this case, I mean us. Is there an
Yeah.
opening for us through our representatives to have leverage?
Yeah.
And I think that's a place where we actually have leverage, where we have something that they need. So maybe that's a start.
No, I think that's brilliant because, and to be honest, the American people need to use the leverage that we have here wherever we can, because, we're already looking at jobs numbers declining because of this. Like, tech companies are very clearly and openly stating they are not hiring back at the same rate that they did because they're testing AI to see what jobs AI can take over and what jobs they actually need to hire back. And this is a process. So there's real jobs now being lost. And these aren't just any jobs. Some of these are relatively, high paying six-figure jobs. So if we're going to flip the bill for data centers and power and water, and we're participating in that collectively, then the benefits should be collective, in my opinion, to all of those participating, which is obviously everybody. And I think we also genuinely need to talk about universal income. Like, if jobs are if the majority of Americans' jobs are going to at some point, be taken over by robots and AI, then what kind of world are we creating, and this gets scary because when you start to talk about universal income and AI taking over our jobs, and we start to talk about, well, what is the actual purpose of a human? What is the actual value of human life starts to come into question a little bit more there. And the from the top, right, from an AI owner perspective, like somebody that owns one of these companies that's controlling the AI, why would we dole out universal income for humans that's not needed? Like, that then becomes the question for them, is why these people will then just become a drain on resources in this world. So then it becomes an elitist kind of situation. And so, yeah, I 1000% agree that working class people need to be using the leverage that they have currently to make sure that we are getting regulations put around this, and that if they're and fighting for, jobs, income, the things that AI is going to displace. And so, we can still live the American dream. We can still live, you know, raise our families, go on vacations, uh, you know, be educated, enjoy the lives that we, obviously were put on this earth to enjoy.
Yeah, I think that there's a you're hitting at a really important policy question that this is something that drives me crazy with the accelerationists, because I've had this conversation with a number of different people, like where they say in 5 years, man, life is going to be so much different. The productivity increases that AI is going to bring, and the intellectual creativity and capacity that it's going to unleash is unbelievable. And I say, yeah, but what about the fact that, like, a million people are going to get fired and they're reasonably high paying jobs? They're like, yes, yes, that's going to happen. But in 5 years, and like that doesn't work
Yeah.
for very obvious reasons, right? Because if I am a, entry level or like 28-year-old young mid level software engineer whose job is displaced by AI, and I was making 140,000 a year, 180,000 a year, you know, one, I made some purchasing decisions and life decisions based on my salary.
Yeah.
And two, I have to pay my rent and my mortgage next month, not in 5 years. I'm not getting a 5-year mortgage forgiveness plan, right? The disruption that people say, they acknowledge the disruption. Yes, there's going to be disruption. I just feel like it's underappreciated, right? If you just rip employment away from a lot of people, that's economy crashing type stuff. That's world economy crashing type stuff. And there's an argument, a counter argument that like there's going to be a whole new level of type of jobs that are created. Great. Where's the training for them? Are we training for them right now? Do we have AI engineer training programs? How many universities are offering tracks in this? Are there pre-university tracks in this? Where is the public investment in getting our society ready for this switch? Because I can tell you that there probably aren't that many people who went to college to be a software engineer or to be an attorney, let's say, or to be an accountant, jobs that can all be displaced by AI, who are going to be super psyched that they're turning microscopic screws, which is what the Treasury Secretary was talking. The Commerce Secretary was talking about earlier last year.
That was some of
Like,
the dumbest conversation I've ever heard in my life. It's like, go to hell, dude.
yeah, so it's just another area where like universal basic income seems to me like the only logical thing that's ever come up that affords this, right? Because the
Yeah.
promise of AI, and to go back to last week a little bit, accelerationists are like, guys, why are you so negative on this? Right? You're all doom, doom, doom. Like, okay, bro, cool. I'll back off on that. But you're making some huge promises about what AI is going to do. And you're not acknowledging the risks along the way. And those risks along the way have to be addressed by policy. And when we start talking about policy, like, okay, show me something better than universal basic income. Because people are going to need money. The fucking butcher is going to want money. HEB is going to want money. When I go grocery shopping, my car is going to need to be repaired with money.
Yep.
And if I'm not working anymore because AI took my job, where's my money coming from?
Yep. Yeah.
And we just
I've only heard one guy talking about this so far, and that's Andrew Yang, and he's actually been talking about it forever. So, which, and I will say this: I had one conversation with somebody recently that brought up a relatively decent counterpoint to this, which was, you know, since we have since technology has advanced, right? And what I will say to preface this is that I think the previous promise of technology was not the same promise that we're getting with AI. The
I think that's
promise of
right.
it, the promise of AI is exponentially higher than anything else that we've been promised with technology prior to. So, but his whole thing was like, dude, at what point has new technology ever not created more jobs? Because if there's one thing that's guaranteed with technology is that it fails. And when technology fails, like the technology in your car, now somebody's got to fix that. The technology in your phone, now somebody's got to fix that. Like there's a human element to repairing the technology that we've created and put out. And I'm like, okay, valid argument. And I tend to agree with some of that. I don't, but the thing that I don't know yet is that what has been promised to us with AI and we have yet to see and we have no understanding of yet is that this is such powerful technology that it can repair itself. That a lot of that when you need something fixed, it's not needing a human element. It's just needing awareness that problem needs to be fixed. And so that's where the disconnect for me comes in. But I don't know that we're going to deliver the AI that's been promised to us as quickly as they're saying it's going to be delivered. And so as we go down this path, uh, that is the only way that I think we transition lightly uh, out of transition from what we've been in to what's coming, is that if there is a natural transition of jobs that are us more working alongside AI and repairing the AI, fine tuning it, doing that kind of stuff, and then eventually getting to a point where we can slowly say like, oh, this isn't going to be necessary soon, and we need universal income. Like,
Yeah, I think the guy he has a point, but my counterpoint, which is more along the lines I think of what you're thinking, would be if you take an Amazon factory that employs 5,000 people in a shift and put in 100 robots that can do the work of 5,000 people, right? It does not take 50 people per robot to fix that robot, which is what you would need to net out the 500 jobs, the
Correct.
5,000 jobs that were lost, right? So I just fear that this idea that AI can repair itself is an excellent point, and I just feel like all of this is designed to get rid of human jobs because computers, technology. I used to sell legal technology, and the pitch was always the technology can do this cheaper than the human. Like, yeah, this costs $2,000 a month. You're right. That's expensive for three of your attorneys to use this. Okay. But right now, you're paying two paralegals $60,000 a year to do basically the same work. You do the math, right? That's always the pitch with technology, and I'm not sure that it's decelerating, right? It's just getting more and more and more. Like this will replace more jobs
Yeah.
and more jobs, and eventually there's a tipping point there.
Yeah. I agree 1,000%. So, all right, I'm going to wrap our conversation there because I think we could continue to get more and more doom and gloom, but we,
I actually want to close with two
ooh,
unusually positive points, right? Because I feel like sometimes when I talk to people about this, they're like, "This guy's just a fucking total doom and gloom." One is an example of an industry and a revolutionary technology that is coming, that is being worked on right now. We talked about the power problem for data centers. So there's technology now where uh, companies are working on developing small scale, mass producible nuclear power plants that would power a data center, something the size of a data center, where if a data center is using 100 megawatts of electricity, right, you can get a small scale on site contained nuclear reactor that will provide 50 megawatts. So you buy two, right? And the production of these can be normalized so that there are companies that can mass produce this, and you can now scale your AI. And there's a billion regulatory and safety issues around this that we're not going to get into, but that truly would be like revolutionary power, a revolution in the energy space that hasn't seen a revolution in many, many years. So it's just an example of like people will build ancillary products and inventions and technologies alongside this that will be beneficial. The second is I'm gonna say something that the Trump did something good. Okay, Trump proposed a rule that uh, would force the companies building data centers to pay for the cost of interconnectivity and transmission lines, rather than pass those on to the consumer. Okay, now it's a federal rule in an area that's state regulated, but I think it is worth just like pointing out that they see it.
yeah.
They saw that. That's a good rule that he proposed, and one that hopefully gets adopted at state levels, or at least that idea gets incorporated.
Yeah, out of every like 100, there's maybe one or two that I'm like, "Oh, I can," because
Yep,
he also said he wants to ban, large Wall Street investors from buying residential real estate, which, we've all been screaming that forever. Like, yeah,
yep,
get them out of here. We
yep,
if we're in what everybody considers a housing crisis, and we're allowing institutional investors to purchase up homes at a large scale with cash, and it's just that's just basically asking for, hey, how do we keep more people poor? So,
yep.
but anyway, because the number one tool for wealth still currently in our country is the equity you get when you purchase a home over time. So, well, who we telling to shut the fuck up today, Elwyn?
We're going big today.
Yeah, God.
We're almost. No,
Like, how big?
we are going to tell. I'm not exactly sure how to phrase this, but we are going to tell that faction of the American Jewish community that is ignoring the obvious parallels to Nazi Germany coming from this government and focusing solely on uh, leftist, you know, leftist morons, leftist people using language that they don't understand, and guys like Mamdani, and focusing solely on that. If you're focusing solely on that, if you think Mamdani is the biggest threat to American Jewry, and not the Department of Homeland Security standing behind a podium that has emblazoned on it, "One of us, all of you," which is a clear reference to the Nazi massacre of everybody in a Czech town in 1938, along with all the other Nazi references that Republicans, both at the state and federal level, have been making for 2 years. If you are focused on, you know, Mamdani only, and, the left, the anti Semitism and anti Zionism on the left only, and not screaming every bit as loudly about this administration, you need to shut the fuck up and you need to do some research. And you need to really, really start thinking, to me, about who has the power. Now, I don't think Trump is a Nazi. I don't, in the sense that I don't think he's going to kill all the Jews or pass any laws that restrict my ability to practice as a Jew. I honestly don't. But I do think that J.D. Vance would. I do think that Sebastian Gorka would, and I certainly think that Stephen Miller would. And these guys hold a fuck ton of power. There are congressmen and senators who are going to fight to take power when Trump is gone. And some of them, if not all of them, are going to lean in huge to the more and more extreme version of what is already extreme. It scares the shit out of me that our government will get up and regularly use Nazi imagery and Nazi slogans and talking about our homeland and restoring our homeland. This is straight out of Third Reich Germany. It doesn't have to end with concentration camps for it to be alarming.
Yeah.
So, yeah, globalize the intifada. If you're running around screaming that and you don't know what the fuck that means, you also need to shut the fuck up and do some research. Okay? But if you're screaming about the people who need to shut the fuck up about globalize the intifada and hand waving away now 12 months of very, very clear 1930s Germany symbolism as simply irrelevant, I like, just please shut the fuck up and look, open your eyes, look and listen, and use your voice to speak about those things in the same way that you're using your voice to speak about Mamdani. Because I can't be alone.
Yeah.
I can't be alone in seeing that, globalize the intifada is terrible and people should not say it. And when large groups of people are saying it, we need to really, really listen and watch what's going on and be ready to stop some terrible shit from happening. But if we give the people in power a pass on all this stuff, and if we give them absolute immunity to do whatever they want to shoot you in the face, then no, I'm sorry, I do not at all trust that when the people who are screaming that America is a Christian nation founded on Christian principles, given the lifelong history, the civilization long history of Jews eventually getting killed for this shit, I do not at all trust that this stops with a sign on a podium. So please shut the fuck up for a minute, put your posts on schedule for 5 days in the future, and look what's going on within the Trump administration and include that on your Instagram feed, because that word needs to be spread.
Fist bump that one. Ciao.
Boom.
I'm going to get you this microphone at some point.
we see each other more than we ever have, but we never see each other.
Yeah, it's true. Dude, this was a good one, man.
This is fun.
Yeah. What do we want to talk about next week? I got a few topics on the list. We got some gerrymandering, immigration. That might be a good one since we're you want to jump on the ICE train?
Yeah, I think immigration is a good one because it's not just policy, but what it's being used to justify is pretty relevant.
Yeah, I agree. So tune in next week, y'all, when Elwyn and I talk about immigration in a way that maybe you've never heard before. I'm Swedish. My grandpa immigrated here, but I don't think it counts because no one cares because I'm a giant white guy. So.
Yeah, immigration seems to have a color of the skin component.
Yeah, I was like, I'm technically, came from an immigrant, just, one of the ones that apparently is okay. So, because I have blue eyes and I'm Swedish, so,
Yeah, you're good.
I'm good.
You're good.
Apparently. I'm not happy about it, but I'm good. Well, whatever. Fuck them. All right. Next week.
Next week.